The Incredible Hulk was proving to be a very tough nut for Universal Studios to crack. They tried again at getting a Hulk movie off the ground between the late 90s and the early 2000s, and it almost seemed to become a curse of sorts. But finally in the early 2000s, they seemed to have found the right man for the job in David Hayter. So what if Hayter's version of the Hulk was made? In September of the year 2000, following the cancellation of Michael France's plans for a Hulk movie, Universal officially hired David Hayter to pen a brand new script, and all the previous versions were officially thrown out. Now, Hayter is almost famous in Hollywood for his unproduced screenplays. He has several canceled movies under his belt, including both an Iron Man movie and a Black Widow movie. He's also famous for his work on the first two X-Men movies and Watchmen, as well as for voicing Solid Snake in the Metal Gear Solid series. Hayter was very excited to take his own crack at the Incredible Hulk, and like Universal saw boatloads of potential in a Hulk franchise. He believed it to be a beautiful and tragic story that desperately needed the big screen treatment. Our story begins with Bruce Banner, who works at Berkeley University. He's working under the supervision of team leader Samuel Stearns, and he works alongside a teenager named Robert Creel, as well as a woman named Betty Ross, who has a very obvious crush on Bruce, as well as his own girlfriend, Jennifer Sussman. Now, this group is experimenting on trying to use gamma radiation in order to help DNA strands regrow human organs and limbs. They test that successfully on frogs, and everything seems to be going exactly the way they wanted it to. It's then that we meet a man named Efrain Muniz. He's trying to steal the team's research, and it turns out that Robert Creel is actually his inside man, feeding him intel. Now, after the experiments go successfully, Muniz orders Creel to steal all the data and destroy the lab by activating the gamma sphere, which he does, and the team ends up being caught inside the lab, and they're all directly bathed in gamma radiation. Now, they all seemingly come out of this okay, actually, but Bruce has a noticeable shift in his normal easygoing personality. He's a lot more quick to anger, and even throws tantrums, such as breaking a chair in a movie theater when a group of teenagers refuse to stop talking and just watch the movie. Now, we see Bruce actually turning into the Hulk for the first time, and he goes on a full-on rampage throughout the university, destroying everything in his wake. And the next morning, he sees a news report about what happened, but he doesn't remember doing any of it. Now, Bruce is then interrogated by the military police, and we soon learn that his girlfriend Jennifer actually died of radiation sickness. They then interrogate Bruce, and the combination of the anger and the grief he's feeling at this moment cause him to turn into the Hulk once again. And we get an intense action scene as the government attempts to stop the Hulk to no avail. Hulk ends up encountering Betty Ross, who manages to temporarily calm him down back into Bruce again, and the pair are taken away in a helicopter. Meanwhile, Samuel Stearns' intelligence has been steadily growing every microsecond, and he comes to the realization that Robert Creel betrayed them. Stearns wants to take back the data that was stolen, hoping to cure himself and Bruce of their ailments. He tracks down Creel and forcefully uses twice the amount of gamma radiation on him, which accidentally turns him into the Absorbing Man. Stearns soon realizes that he's created a monster. We cut back to the helicopter, and Bruce hulks out once again, destroying the chopper and carrying Betty to safety. We then get another huge action set piece as the Hulk takes out a whole squadron of choppers and smashes his way through the city of San Francisco. Stearns manages to gain control of the Absorbing Man using telepathy, and he makes him his own personal puppet. The pair then go to a nuclear power plant where they encounter the Hulk. Stearns tries to use the Absorbing Man to stop the Hulk, however Hulk instead tosses him into the molten core, destroying him. However, this causes a huge earthquake which actually kills the leader. The movie then ends with Bruce now on the run from the government in New Mexico. In the end, however, Universal decided not to go with David Hayter's version, and instead they hired James Schamus to finally get the Hulk movie actually made, and sadly, unlike Michael France and John Turman, Hayter received no recognition at all for his work on the Hulk movie. So you might have seen in this video that some of Hayter's ideas actually did make it into the Ang Lee version, such as the part where they experiment on frogs, the scene of Hulk fighting a bunch of choppers, the Absorbing Man being one of the villains, and a set piece taking place in San Francisco. Those were all from Hayter's version, and they all ended up being in the Ang Lee one. And yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty unfair that David Hayter received no credit for this at all. Because, like, yeah, I'm well aware that James Schamus' script borrowed a lot from the previous ones, but, like, I don't understand why Hayter wasn't given any credit, because clearly, like, a lot of his ideas made it in, and I just don't think that was very fair to him. And overall, I do think that this version of the movie does sound better than the Ang Lee one, at least in my personal opinion. Like, okay, I admit, I would have preferred if they included the stuff with Bruce's abusive father, but, you know, as I said in a previous video, you don't need necessarily to do it. I just think that it's a nice thing. Oh, obviously it's not a nice thing. What I mean is, it's a thing that helps Bruce's story feel, you know, more relatable, but I do think that Hayter's version does well without it still, because it still has the tragedy of, you know, Bruce's girlfriend being killed by, you know, the very thing he was working to perfect, which I think is interesting. And I also like, you know, Hayter's take on the villains. I kind of like the fact that, you know, the leader is not really the villain. He's kind of just, you know, in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the Hulk is kind of like a loose cannon. Hulk is almost the antagonist in this version, and I kind of like that. I think that that would be an interesting start to a Hulk franchise, because then every movie after that you could kind of explore Hulk, you know, or I'm sorry, Bruce Banner having to kind of come to terms with being the Hulk, and the Hulk becoming more and more of, you know, a full-on good guy. Although, I do have to admit, if this movie had been made, I don't know if I'd be happy, just because, you know, like, after he was booted off the project, he went on to do X-Men 2, which was one of my favorite superhero movies growing up, and I don't know if the movie would have been as good without him, so it's kind of a crossroads for me. Would I have rathered, you know, X-Men 2 possibly not be as good, or would I rather, you know, pretty much a guaranteed better Hulk movie? You know, I don't know, because X-Men 2 has such a place in my heart, but I do actually wish that this Hulk movie had been made, because, you know, at least X-Men had one good movie. Hulk didn't have that yet, so maybe it would have been better if Hayter had done this instead. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below if you'd rather Hayter did Hulk instead of X-Men 2. But yeah, I mean, I think it's such a shame. The guy has so much passion for comic books, and honestly, based off this script, I think he has a lot of talent, and I really wish that he was able to show that off more, because, like, they spent so long trying to get a Hulk movie made, and the one we got was such a disappointment, in my opinion. You know, it could have been so much better. Like, almost all the previous scripts that they had made before the Ang Lee one were better, in my opinion. So it's such a shame that the one we ended up with was, you know, so deflating, in my opinion. I mean, that's just my opinion. The Ang Lee one's not all bad. I think the Hulk scenes are really fucking awesome, honestly, and I do like some of the ideas, like making his father the Absorbing Man. Like, I'm not a huge fan of that, but I understand why they did it, and it's not the worst risk in the world. And Eric Bana, you know, he's not that bad as Bruce Banner. He's a little underrated. But yeah, so it's not a bad movie necessarily. It's definitely disappointing, and it's got some bad parts in it, but I don't think the one we ended up with was that bad, but it could have been so much better. Like, I think even the biggest supporters of the Ang Lee version can admit it could have been better. At least in my opinion. If I'm like, you know, hugely wrong, like, if there's a legion of people out there I think the movie's perfect as is, then I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. I really would, because maybe you guys could help me see something I'm not seeing. I don't know. But yeah, I really wish this version of the movie had been made instead, but that's just my personal opinion. But let me know in the comments down below, do you like the Ang Lee version, or would you have rather seen this version? Or would you have rather seen one of the other versions I discussed in previous videos? Let me know all about that in the comments down below. Also, give me more what-if recommendations in the comments down below. Why do I keep saying that weird? Let me know in the comments down below, whether it's about the Hulk, or Spider-Man, or anything else Marvel, or anything not Marvel. Let me know in the comments. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and share it with all of your friends on all your various social media platforms. And speaking of social media, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Rinzler_Productions, and ring that notification bell, because I have a new video available every single day, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So ring that notification bell to stay updated on all future uploads on this channel, and I'll see all of you tomorrow in the next video.